Montana Territory, 1875. The vast prairie stretched endlessly beneath the copper sky, indifferent to the blood spilled upon it. 25-year-old Nathan Faulkner wiped sweat from his brow as he finished stacking hay bales in the barn of the Circle F ranch. His lean, muscular frame moved with the easy grace of a man who'd spent his life in the saddle, though his handsome face carried a wariness beyond his years. The afternoon sun caught the gold flecks in his hazel eyes as he pulled his worn Stetson lower. Nathan believed the frontier left no room for tenderness. Men who dropped their guard ended up buried on windswept hills. He'd watched too many good men die, friends, mentors, even his father, to believe otherwise. The West demanded vigilance, not vulnerability. Love was a luxury for those in safe eastern parlors, not for men who faced rustlers, drought, and winter storms that could wipe out everything in a single night. Nathan, the voice of his older brother Matthew, echoed across the yard. "Pa's wagon is coming up the road." Nathan nodded, brushing hay from his chambray shirt. Their father had been gone 2 weeks, traveling to Helena for supplies and to meet with bankers about expanding their cattle operation. The Circle F was growing, and Nathan took pride in that. This land, this legacy, it was what mattered, not the emptiness that sometimes gnawed at him during long nights alone with the stars. As they walked toward the main house, Matthew clapped a hand on his shoulder. At 28, Matthew shared Nathan's height and coloring but carried himself with the confidence of the eldest son. While Nathan had inherited their father's wariness, Matthew possessed their late mother's easy charm. "Think Pa managed to convince the bank?" Matthew asked. "He usually gets what he wants," Nathan replied. They reached the porch just as their father's wagon rolled into the yard, kicking up dust that caught the late afternoon light. James Faulkner, gray-haired but still straight-backed at 53, wasn't alone. Beside him sat a young woman whose honey-blonde hair caught the sun like spun gold. She wore a simple blue traveling dress, modest but well-made, and her posture was straight despite what must have been a grueling journey. "Boys," their father called as he pulled the wagon to a stop. "Come meet our guest. This is Lily Harrington, niece of Thomas Harrington from over Helena way." Nathan froze. No one had mentioned bringing a woman to the ranch. Women meant complications, distractions from the work that needed doing. The young woman turned, and Nathan felt something shift in the ground beneath his boots. Her eyes were a clear, deep blue, like Montana's summer sky. Her face, lightly freckled across a straight nose, held a quiet dignity. She couldn't have been more than 22. "Miss Harrington," Matthew stepped forward, charm evident in his easy smile. "Welcome to Circle F. We're honored to have you." "Thank you, Mr. Faulkner," she replied, her voice carrying the slight refinement of Eastern education but lacking the affected tones that Nathan associated with city women. James helped her down from the wagon. "Lily's uncle is an old friend. When he wrote that his niece needed country air after a difficult winter in Boston, I couldn't refuse. She'll be staying with us through summer." Nathan's jaw tightened. Their ranch was no place for a city woman looking for pastoral amusement. The West wasn't a cure for Eastern melancholy. It was harsh, demanding, and unforgiving. "I hope I won't be a burden," Lily said, looking directly at Nathan now, as if sensing his resistance. "I've come to work, not to be coddled." "Lily's quite accomplished," James added. "Taught school back east. Figure she might teach some of the ranch hands' children while she's here. Many haven't had proper schooling." Nathan tipped his hat stiffly. "Miss Harrington." Something flashed in her eyes, determination, perhaps, or challenge. "Mr. Faulkner, the younger, I presume." "Yes, ma'am." "I look forward to proving my usefulness." There was steel beneath her politeness, a quality Nathan hadn't expected. As Matthew eagerly offered to show her to the house, Nathan hung back, watching. His brother's interest was immediate and obvious, his usual easy charm amplified in the presence of beauty. That night, after Lily had been settled in the small room that had once belonged to their mother, Nathan confronted his father on the porch. "What were you thinking, bringing a city woman here?" James sighed, tamping tobacco into his pipe. "She's not what you're thinking, son. Tom wrote that she's been through something rough back east. Wouldn't say what exactly, but reading between the lines, I gather there was a man involved." "A bad one." Nathan's skepticism must have shown on his face because his father continued more firmly. "The girl needs space to heal. Tom says she's got grit, and we could use some civilizing influence around here." You and your brother have been too long without female company. I don't need female company, Nathan insisted, and the ranch doesn't need distractions. James lit his pipe, the flame briefly illuminating his weathered face. Not everything's about the ranch, Nathan. Life's meant for living, not just surviving. Tell that to Ma, Nathan said quietly. His father's face softened with old grief. Your mother wouldn't want you boys to wall yourselves off from living, especially you, Nathan, always were the serious one. Nathan said nothing, but his father's words followed him to the bunkhouse where he preferred to sleep, closer to the horses and the ranch hands. His mother had died of fever when Nathan was 14. He'd watched her waste away despite their desperate efforts, learned then that love wasn't protection against the frontier's harsh realities. The next morning, Nathan rose before dawn as usual. He headed to the barn, expecting to be alone in the quiet morning hours, but found Lily Harrington already there, wearing a simple skirt and blouse, her hair tied back beneath a kerchief. She stood before his horse's stall, speaking softly to the temperamental stallion who typically allowed only Nathan to approach him. That horse doesn't take to strangers, Nathan said, startling her. Lily turned, color rising in her cheeks. I didn't mean to intrude. I couldn't sleep and thought I might make myself useful. By getting yourself kicked. By becoming acquainted with the animals, she stood her ground. I grew up around horses before, she stopped, something shadowing her expression, before I went to Boston. Nathan approached, expecting his stallion to pin his ears back at Lily's presence. Instead, the horse nudged her shoulder gently. Traitor, Nathan muttered to the horse. A smile touched her lips, transforming her face from merely pretty to something that made Nathan's chest tighten unexpectedly. Animals are excellent judges of character, Mr. Faulkner. Nathan, he corrected automatically. There are too many Mr. Faulkners around here. Nathan, then, she nodded, and I'm Lily. What are you really doing out here at this hour, Miss Harrington? Lily, she insisted. And I meant what I said. I came to Montana to be useful, not decorative. This isn't Boston. Ranch work is hard. So is surviving a Boston winter on teacher's wages, Mr. Faulkner. She stepped away from the stall. I should let you start your day. As she walked toward the barn door, sunlight catching her blonde hair, Nathan called after her, the ranch hands children, how many can you teach at once? She turned, surprise evident. I've managed classrooms of 30 in Boston. The foreman's wife has been trying to organize lessons. There are 12 children between the hands families. If you're serious about being useful. Hope brightened her features. I am very serious. I'll speak with Mrs. Collins about setting up the old line shack as a schoolroom. Thank you, she hesitated. Your brother mentioned you might think me an interloper. Matthew talks too much. He seems to consider it one of his charms. Despite himself, Nathan's mouth quirked. One of many, according to him. A real smile now reaching her eyes. Good morning, Nathan. She walked out into the brightening day, leaving him staring after her, unsettled by the encounter. Over the next 2 weeks, Lily proved herself far more capable than Nathan had expected. She established a small school for the ranch children, helped with household tasks, and even assisted with the kitchen garden. The ranch hands' wives appreciated her willingness to work alongside them rather than holding herself above domestic labor. Matthew, meanwhile, made no secret of his growing interest in Lily. He brought her wildflowers, took her riding on his best mare, and regaled her with stories that made her laugh. Nathan watched their interactions from a distance, telling himself his unease was merely concern that his brother's infatuation would disrupt ranch operations. One evening, as sunset painted the mountains gold, Nathan found Lily sitting alone on the porch swing, a book open in her lap. Matthew had ridden to a neighboring ranch on business, and James was meeting with the foreman. Mind some company? Nathan asked, surprising himself. Lily looked up, equally surprised. Not at all. He sat beside her, leaving proper distance between them. What are you reading? She showed him the cover. The Pioneers by James Fenimore Cooper. Bit romantic, isn't it? The frontier as adventure. Perhaps, she admitted, but there's truth in it too, people seeking new beginnings. Is that what you're doing? Seeking a new beginning. She closed the book. Isn't everyone out here doing that in their way? Some of us were born here. This isn't a new beginning. It's the only life we've known. Lily studied him, her blue eyes thoughtful in the fading light. You don't approve of Easterners coming west. I don't approve of people who don't understand what they're getting into, Nathan clarified. The West isn't forgiving of mistakes or weakness. And you believe I'm weak. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Lily's voice remained calm, but her spine straightened. You see my hands without calluses and assume I'll break at the first hardship. Won't you? I've already broken, Mr. Faulkner. The words were quiet but carried such weight that Nathan stared at her, and I've put myself back together. That's why I'm here. Before he could respond, she continued, Your brother told me about your mother. I'm very sorry. Nathan tensed. Matthew shouldn't discuss family matters with outsiders. Is that what I am? An outsider. There was hurt in her voice, quickly masked. Forgive me, I didn't mean to pry. She rose to leave, but Nathan caught her wrist, then immediately released it when she flinched. Wait, he said, gentling his tone. I shouldn't have snapped, it's just not something I discuss. Lily hesitated, then sat again. I understand, some wounds are too deep for words. In the silence that followed, Nathan found himself saying, She died during an outbreak of scarlet fever. I was 14. Matthew was 17. We watched her slip away over 3 days. That's a heavy burden for boys so young. It taught us what matters, Nathan said, being prepared. Being vigilant. The frontier doesn't care about your feelings or your dreams. It only respects strength and readiness. Lily looked out toward the distant mountains. My parents died in a ferry accident when I was 16. My uncle took me in, he meant well, but, she trailed off, but. Nathan prompted, unexpectedly invested in her story. He thought the best future for an orphan girl was marriage. He introduced me to the son of his business partner. Her voice remained steady, but her hands tightened on the book. Edward seemed kind at first, charming. By the time I saw beneath that charm, we were engaged. Nathan's jaw tightened. He hurt you. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. The first time he apologized so beautifully, I convinced myself it was an accident. The second time he blamed me. By the third time I knew it would never stop. What did you do? Nathan asked, anger rising at the thought of someone harming her. I broke the engagement. My uncle was furious. Edward's family was wealthy, influential. When I wouldn't reconsider, my uncle suggested I spend time with his friend James Faulkner in Montana Territory. To clear my head, he said. To get you out of his way, Nathan corrected. Lily's smile was sad. Yes, but it may be the kindest thing he's ever done for me. Something shifted between them in that moment, an understanding, a recognition of shared wounds differently born. Nathan saw her differently now, not as a fragile Easterner playing at frontier life, but as someone fighting for her own redemption. The West respects strength, Nathan said finally. But maybe strength isn't just about calloused hands or the ability to work from sunup to sundown. Maybe sometimes it's about starting over when everything falls apart. The smile she gave him then was small but genuine. That's the most encouraging thing you've said to me yet, Nathan Faulkner. 2 months passed. Summer reached its height, bringing long days of ranch work and warm evenings where the entire ranch community often gathered for music and conversation. Lily's small school flourished, and the ranch wives had accepted her as one of their own. Even Nathan had to admit she'd found her place at Circle F. What he wouldn't admit, could barely acknowledge to himself, was how often he found reasons to be where Lily was. He told himself he was just being protective, especially as Matthew's pursuit of her grew more obvious. Yet sometimes he caught her looking at him when she thought he wouldn't notice, a question in her eyes that made his heart pound traitorously. One scorching afternoon, Nathan rode out to check fences in the north pasture. Reaching the creek that marked their property line, he was surprised to find Lily sitting on the bank, sketching in a small book. Her blonde hair hung loose down her back, and she'd removed her shoes to dip her feet in the cool water. You shouldn't be out here alone, he said, dismounting. She looked up, shielding her eyes against the sun. I'm not alone now, am I? Nathan couldn't help smiling as he led his horse to drink. What are you drawing? She showed him the sketchbook, a surprisingly skilled rendering of the vista before them, mountains, rolling hills, the creek catching light. You're talented, he said, genuinely impressed. Thank you. I used to dream of being an illustrator for books or magazines. Why didn't you pursue it? Lily's expression clouded. Edward thought it unseemly. He said no wife of his would work like a common tradesperson. Nathan's dislike for the unseen Edward intensified. Sounds like a real prize. I thought so once, she closed the sketchbook. Your brother invited me to the town dance this Saturday. Nathan's stomach tightened. Matthew's always been fond of dancing. Yes, he mentioned that. She studied Nathan's face. Will you be going? Someone needs to watch the ranch. Your father said all of you should attend. It's important for the ranch's standing in the community. Nathan sighed. Then I suppose I'll be there. Will you dance? Lily asked, a hint of challenge in her voice. I don't dance, Miss Harrington. Can't or won't? Both, he admitted. I've got 2 left feet and little patience for social niceties. She laughed, the sound bright against the backdrop of rushing water and wind through grass. At least you're honest. Impulsively, he sat beside her on the creek bank. Matthew will make a better dance partner. He's always been the sociable one. Yes, Lily agreed. Matthew is very charming. Something about her tone made Nathan glance at her sharply, but she met his eyes directly. Charm isn't everything. Sometimes it hides as much as it reveals. Nathan wasn't sure how to respond to that. They sat in companionable silence, watching the water flow past. He was acutely aware of her presence beside him, the subtle scent of lavender, the rhythm of her breathing. I should get back to my fence line, he said finally, reluctant to end the moment but uncomfortable with the feelings it stirred. And I should return before your father worries. She stood, brushing grass from her skirt. Thank you for the company, Nathan. Anytime, Lily. The word slipped out naturally, and her smile in response stayed with him all afternoon. Saturday arrived clear and hot. The town dance was being held in the newly completed community hall, and it seemed everyone within 50 miles was attending. Matthew had spent an hour getting ready, pomading his hair and selecting his best shirt. Nathan made less effort, but he found himself checking his appearance in the small mirror more times than usual. They traveled together in the wagon, James driving with Nathan beside him, Matthew and Lily in the back. Nathan was painfully aware of his brother's attentiveness to Lily, offering a blanket against the evening chill, pointing out constellations as darkness fell, making her laugh with stories of their childhood adventures. The town of Riverside was small but growing, buoyed by the cattle trade and nearby mining operations. The new hall was festooned with lanterns and wildflowers. A small band played while couples whirled across the floor, and tables along the walls held an impressive spread of food brought by the community's women. As soon as they arrived, Matthew swept Lily onto the dance floor. Nathan watched from the sidelines, nursing a cup of punch, telling himself the tightness in his chest was concern for Lily's well-being, nothing more. She's quite something, isn't she? His father said, appearing beside him. Nathan shrugged. Matthew certainly thinks so. James studied his younger son, and you don't. I think she deserves better than being anyone's summer diversion. You don't give your brother enough credit. His interest seems genuine. Nathan watched as Matthew twirled Lily, her blue dress flaring, her laughter visible even from a distance. Maybe, but does he understand her? Really understand what she's been through? James gave him a penetrating look, and you do. Before Nathan could answer, several ranch hands approached to discuss business, and his father was drawn away. Nathan remained at the edge of the celebration, declining several invitations to dance from local girls. His attention kept returning to Lily, who danced not only with Matthew but with several other men, though she frequently glanced in Nathan's direction. After nearly 2 hours, she appeared before him, cheeks flushed from dancing. Are you determined to be the only person not enjoying themselves tonight? I'm enjoying watching others make fools of themselves, he replied, though there was no bite to his words. Dance with me, she said suddenly. I told you I don't dance. Just once, then I'll leave you to your brooding. Before he could formulate another excuse, she took his hand. Her touch sent warmth up his arm, and he found himself following her onto the floor just as the band began a slower waltz. I'll step on your feet, he warned. I'll survive, she countered, placing his hand at her waist and taking his other hand in hers. Nathan had never been so aware of his body, the awkwardness of his movements compared to her grace, the heat of her hand in his, the proper distance between them that somehow felt both too great and too small. "Stop thinking so hard," Lily advised. "Just feel the music." "Where's Matthew?" he asked, glancing around. "Outside with some of the other ranchers discussing cattle prices." She guided him through a turn. "You're not as terrible as you claimed. Give it time." She laughed. "You know what your problem is, Nathan Faulkner. I'm sure you're about to tell me. You're so convinced life will disappoint you that you're afraid to hope for anything good." Her blue eyes held his, challenging. "You wall yourself off because it feels safer than risking pain." "That's presumptuous," he said stiffly. "Is it wrong?" He didn't answer, but his silence was answer enough. "I understand," she continued more gently. "After Edward, I thought I'd never trust anyone again, especially not a man with charm and easy words." "Like my brother," Nathan said before he could stop himself. Lily's steps faltered slightly. "Matthew has been nothing but kind. I didn't mean to suggest otherwise. He's a good man. But—" Nathan struggled to articulate feelings he barely understood himself. "But sometimes I wonder if you see him clearly, or if you're just seeing what he wants you to see." The music ended before she could respond. They stood for a moment, still connected, until Matthew's voice broke the spell. "There you are," he approached, smiling broadly. "I didn't know you danced, little brother." "I don't," Nathan said, stepping away from Lily. "Miss Harrington was just taking pity on me." Something flickered in Lily's eyes, hurt perhaps, or disappointment. "Hardly pity," she said quietly. Matthew offered his arm. "They're serving dessert now." Mrs. Peterson brought her famous apple pie. Lily hesitated, looking at Nathan as if waiting for something. When he said nothing, she took Matthew's arm. "That sounds lovely." Nathan watched them walk away, feeling as though he'd failed some crucial test without understanding the questions. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Nathan spoke with neighbors, discussed cattle prices with buyers from back east, and pointedly avoided watching his brother's attentions to Lily. When it was finally time to leave, he was first to the wagon. The ride home was subdued, everyone tired from the evening's festivities. Matthew dozed off, his head occasionally bumping Lily's shoulder. In the quiet darkness, Nathan felt Lily's gaze on him but didn't turn to meet it. Back at the ranch, as Matthew helped Lily down from the wagon, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I had a wonderful time tonight, Lily. I hope you'll consider what we discussed." Nathan's head snapped up. "What discussion?" Matthew smiled, an arm around Lily's waist. "I've asked Lily to consider becoming my wife." The world seemed to tilt beneath Nathan's boots. His father clapped Matthew on the shoulder, clearly pleased. "Well now, that's something to consider indeed." Lily's face was unreadable in the moonlight. "I told Matthew I need time to think." "Of course," James said, "it's a big decision. But you'd make a fine addition to the family, Lily." Nathan said nothing, his throat too tight for words. As the others headed toward the house, he mumbled an excuse about checking the horses and escaped to the barn. He was brushing down his stallion with unnecessary vigor when he heard the barn door open. Lily stood there, still in her blue dance dress, her expression troubled. "Are you going to say anything?" she asked. "Congratulations," he offered, not looking at her. "I haven't accepted him." "But you will," Nathan resumed, brushing. "Matthew's a good man. He'll give you security, position in the community. Everything a woman wants." "Is that what you think I want?" There was anger in her voice now. "Security, position. Don't you? After everything I've told you about my life, do you really believe I'd marry for convenience?" She stepped closer. "I want what everyone wants, Nathan, to be seen, to be known. To be loved for who I truly am, not who someone wishes me to be." Nathan finally turned to face her. "And Matthew doesn't see you." "Matthew sees a pretty schoolteacher who needs rescuing. He doesn't see the nightmares, the doubts, the woman who had to rebuild herself from broken pieces." "And I do," the question came out hoarse, vulnerable. "Yes," the single word hung between them. "You do." Nathan put down the brush, heart hammering. "Lily, I—" "Nathan," Matthew's voice cut through the moment as he entered the barn. "There you are. Pa needs help with something in the house." He looked between them, noticing the tension. Everything all right? Fine, Nathan said shortly, just making sure the horses are settled. Good man, Matthew offered his arm to Lily. Let me walk you back to the house. After a long look at Nathan, Lily accepted Matthew's arm. As they left, she glanced back once, her eyes holding a question Nathan couldn't answer. The next weeks were torture. Matthew's courtship intensified, writing excursions, small gifts, constant attention. Nathan threw himself into ranch work, leaving before dawn and returning after dark, avoiding meals and gatherings where he might encounter Lily and his brother together. His father noticed, of course. One evening, he cornered Nathan in the stables. You're working yourself to death, son. Ranch doesn't run itself, Nathan replied, continuing to mend tack. This isn't about the ranch. James leaned against a post. It's about Lily Harrington. Nathan's hands stilled. Matthew's the one courting her, not me. That doesn't mean you're not in love with her. The blunt assessment left Nathan speechless for a moment. I'm not. Don't lie to me, boy. I've watched you these past months. I've seen how you look at her when you think no one's watching. Nathan set down the leather strap he'd been working on. It doesn't matter what I feel, Matthew asked her first. She's not a prime heifer at auction, Nathan. What matters is what she wants. She deserves better than a bitter man who can barely express his own failings. James sighed. You're more like your mother than you know. She was just as stubborn about admitting her feelings. Nearly drove me crazy before she finally confessed she loved me. This is different. Is it? His father straightened. Life's too short for regrets, son. Your mother taught me that. Don't wait until it's too late to speak your heart. He left Nathan alone with thoughts too complicated to unravel. 3 days later, disaster struck. A sudden summer storm rolled in while Nathan and several hands were moving cattle in the high pasture. Lightning spooked the herd, causing a stampede toward the creek that had swollen with rain. 2 hands were thrown from their horses. Nathan managed to divert most of the herd, but in the chaos, his stallion lost footing on the muddy bank and both horse and rider plunged into the rushing water. Nathan remembered little of what followed, the crushing cold of the water, the desperate fight to surface, being slammed against rocks and fallen trees. He had vague memories of hands pulling him from the creek, of being carried on an improvised stretcher, of fever and pain. He awoke in his childhood bed in the main house, his body a catalogue of injuries, broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder, a gash on his head that had required stitches. His first coherent thought was of his horse. Diablo, he croaked, his throat raw. He's fine, Lily's voice answered, bruised and shaken but alive like his master. Nathan turned his head carefully to see her sitting beside his bed, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she'd been there for some time. How long, he managed. 3 days. She poured water from a pitcher and helped him drink. You had a fever, we weren't sure. Her voice broke and Nathan was startled to see tears in her eyes. Takes more than a creek to kill me, he said, attempting lightness. Don't joke, she set the cup down with shaking hands. We nearly lost you. Wouldn't want to inconvenience everyone. Stop it, there was sudden fury in her voice. Stop pretending you don't matter. That your life is somehow less valuable than everyone else's. Nathan was taken aback by her vehemence. Lily. No, you listen to me, Nathan Faulkner. For 3 days I've watched you fight for your life. For 3 days I've prayed to a God I'm not even sure I believe in anymore to spare you, and all because you're too stubborn to admit that life might actually hold something good for you. Tears were falling freely now, and Nathan felt something crack open in his chest that had nothing to do with his broken ribs. Why do you care? He asked softly. Because I love you, you impossible man. The words burst from her like they'd been held back too long. Not Matthew, you, with all your gruffness and your walls and your belief that loving someone is a weakness rather than the greatest strength there is. Nathan stared at her, certain he was still delirious with fever. You can't love me, I'm not. What charming, sociable, thank God for that, she wiped at her tears. I've had charm, I've had pretty words and grand gestures. What I want, what I need, is truth. And that's what you've always given me, even when it wasn't what I wanted to hear. Matthew. Knows, Lily's expression softened. I told him the night after your accident. It wasn't fair to let him continue hoping when my heart was elsewhere. How did he take it? Better than you might think, he said he'd suspected for some time. She reached for Nathan's hand, careful of his injuries. He loves you, Nathan. He wants your happiness, even if it's not what he originally wanted for himself. Nathan tried to absorb this revelation through the fog of pain and medication. I don't know how to do this, Lily. I've spent so long believing that caring too much was dangerous. I know, her fingers intertwined with his. We'll learn together. I'm not asking for promises or declarations. I'm just asking you to try. To believe that maybe, just maybe, love isn't a weakness out here. Maybe it's the only thing that makes the frontier bearable. Looking into her eyes, Nathan felt decades of carefully constructed walls begin to crumble. Stay, he said simply, while I heal, while I try. Her smile was like sunrise after the longest night. I'm not going anywhere, Nathan Faulkner, not for a very long time. Recovery was slow and often painful. Nathan, accustomed to constant activity, chafed at the enforced rest. But Lily was there each day, reading to him, helping with exercises to strengthen his injured shoulder, bringing news of the ranch operations that Matthew was temporarily overseeing. More importantly, she created space for Nathan to lower his defenses. In the quiet of his sick room, away from the demands of ranch life, they talked as they never had before. Nathan spoke of his mother's death, of the responsibility he'd felt as a teenager to never show weakness, of his fear that loving someone meant eventually losing them. Lily shared more of her own story, her parents' deaths, her uncle's well-meaning but suffocating guardianship, the slow erosion of her confidence under Edward's manipulation and abuse. He made me believe I was worthless, she confessed one evening as twilight softened the room, that no one else would ever want me, that I should be grateful for his attention despite his occasional temper. Nathan's hand tightened around hers. Though still weak from his injuries, he felt a surge of protective anger. If I ever meet him. You won't, Lily assured him. That part of my life is over, but don't you see, we're not so different, you and I, we both built walls. Mine were to keep out those who would hurt me, yours were to keep out anyone who might make you vulnerable. And yet here you are, Nathan said, on the inside of my walls. Her smile was tender. Here I am. By the time Nathan was strong enough to leave his bed, autumn was painting the Montana landscape in gold and crimson. His first real venture outside was to walk with Lily to the pasture where Diablo grazed, his own injuries healed. The stallion trotted over at Nathan's whistle, nudging his chest in greeting. He missed you, Lily said, stroking the horse's neck. I missed him too. Nathan looked beyond the pasture to the mountains, the ranch, the life he'd always known but now saw differently. I missed all of this. Seeing it through your eyes has changed something in me. For the better, I hope. He turned to her, still beautiful in the autumn sunlight, her honey blonde hair caught by the breeze. Definitely for the better. That evening, the entire ranch gathered for a celebration of Nathan's recovery. Under the stars, with lanterns strung between trees and tables laden with food, the Circle F community came together in a way Nathan had never fully appreciated before. He watched as Lily moved among the ranch families, greeting children from her school, chatting with the women, laughing with the hands. She belonged here now, as much a part of the Circle F as anyone born to it. Matthew approached, 2 glasses of cider in hand. He offered one to Nathan. She's something special. Nathan accepted the drink. I know you cared for her. Matthew shrugged, his expression surprisingly free of resentment. I was infatuated. You love her. I do, Nathan admitted the first time he'd said it aloud. I'm sorry if that hurts you. Life's too short for regrets, little brother. Ma taught us that, remember? Matthew clinked his glass against Nathan's. Besides, Mary Johnson has been giving me the eye all evening. Nathan laughed, grateful for his brother's resilience and generosity of spirit. As Matthew wandered off toward the pretty daughter of a neighboring rancher, Nathan sought out Lily. He found her at the edge of the gathering, gazing up at the star-filled sky. Penny for your thoughts, he said, coming to stand beside her. I was thinking about journeys, she replied. How sometimes we end up exactly where we need to be, even when it's nowhere near where we thought we were going. I never thought I needed anyone, Nathan admitted. I was wrong. She turned to face him. Does that frighten you? Less than it used to, he took her hands in his. Lily Harrington, I'm not good with words, I'm not charming like Matthew or wise like my father, but I love you. I think I've loved you since that first morning in the barn, when Diablo betrayed me by taking to you immediately. Her laugh was soft, her eyes shining. Horses are excellent judges of character. They are. Nathan drew her slightly away from the gathering, into the privacy of deepening shadows. I can't promise life will be easy here. The West isn't forgiving. Winters are harsh. There will be good years and bad with the cattle, but I can promise that you'll never face any of it alone. That's all I've ever wanted, Lily said. Not an easy life, a shared one. Nathan reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object that caught the distant lantern light. This was my mother's, he said, showing her a simple gold band with a single small diamond. My father gave it to me this morning, said he'd been saving it for when I finally came to my senses. Lily's eyes widened. Nathan. I don't expect an answer right away, he hastened to add. We have time. I just wanted you to know my intentions. Ask me properly, she whispered, heart pounding. Nathan took a deep breath. Lily Harrington, will you marry me? Will you build a life with me here at Circle F? Will you teach me how to live, not just survive? Yes, she said without hesitation. To all of it, yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Nathan felt the last of his walls crumble. The West was still harsh, still unforgiving. Life would still bring pain and loss. But for the first time, he understood what his father had tried to tell him, that loving someone wasn't weakness but the greatest strength of all. When he kissed her beneath the Montana stars, Nathan Faulkner finally came home. They were married that Christmas in the same community hall where they had danced months before. The entire county attended, celebrating not just the union of two people but the healing of old wounds, the promise of new beginnings. Matthew stood proudly as his brother's best man, his genuine happiness for the couple evident to all. James Faulkner watched with tears in his eyes as Nathan, strong again after his recovery, pledged his life to the woman who had taught him that the frontier's greatest lesson wasn't survival at all costs, but the courage to risk one's heart. As winter settled over the Montana territory, Circle F Ranch became what James had always hoped for his sons, not just a successful cattle operation, but a true home where love tempered the frontier's harshness. In the spring, Nathan and Lily began building their own house on a rise overlooking the creek that had nearly claimed his life. By summer, as the wildflowers bloomed across the prairie, they moved into their new home. And by the following winter, the sound of a baby's cry echoed through the rooms, a daughter they named Sarah after Nathan's mother. Life in the West remained challenging. There were droughts and blizzards, market fluctuations, and difficult births, both human and livestock. But through it all, Nathan and Lily faced each challenge together, their love deepening with each passing season. Sometimes, on summer evenings when the day's work was done, they would sit on their porch watching the sun set behind the mountains. Lily would sketch the changing light while Nathan held their daughter, marveling at how his life had transformed. Any regrets? Lily would sometimes ask, a teasing light in her eyes. Only that it took nearly drowning for me to admit I loved you, Nathan would reply, drawing her close. And as darkness settled over the Montana prairie, the lights of Circle F Ranch glowed warm against the vast wilderness, a beacon of the truth Nathan Faulkner had finally learned, that even in the unforgiving West, love was not a luxury but the very foundation of survival.